Hello and welcome to Precision Monitoring Training. Today we will be training you on a psychological intervention called precision monitoring, also known as precision teaching. So what are the aims for this training? In this training, we will be considering the psychology of precision monitoring. We will also aim to understand precision monitoring and ultimately practice it. Precision monitoring can be seen to be a complicated intervention, but it is very simple, and this training aims to make it as simple and user-friendly as possible. So what is precision monitoring? Precision monitoring is a way to plan, monitor, and evaluate a teaching program for an individual pupil, helping them to learn a specific skill. Precision monitoring, also known as precision teaching, is generally used to teach children with reading difficulties, as early reading researcher Jonathan Solity found that children learn to read more effectively in short, regular sessions. It is a tool used to assess the children's progress against their own standard. Precision monitoring is designed to ensure that children should always make progress. Therefore, it is a very effective way of raising a child's self-confidence, as they can monitor and see the small improvements that they make. This is linked to motivational theory and increases self-esteem. Therefore, precision monitoring is suitable for use with pupils who are making little or no progress with specific skills and who would benefit from increased self-confidence. Precision monitoring is a flexible tool that can support inclusive practice. It is founded on the principle that true mastery of a skill involves fluency and not just accuracy. Fluency is what's known as near automatic knowledge. It involves practice and reinforcement. This fluency distinguishes the beginner from the true expert. So what are the key features of precision monitoring? Well, first of all, the aim is for precision monitoring to take place at least once a day. In education, it usually takes place every day a student is at school. It involves short and restricted time periods between 5 to 10 minutes per session, including the teaching and testing. And through testing, extremely small changes in performance can be observed, recorded, and evaluated within precision monitoring. We celebrate achievement and also immediate feedback is given. Precision monitoring is built around the pupil and it makes personalized learning possible. It is flexible, but indeed it is precise. Therefore, it allows for small changes in performance to be noticed, and it is an excellent tool specifically for students who require confidence building. Let's look at some psychology connected to this psychological intervention. One of the theories that we attribute to precision monitoring is based on the learning hierarchy by Haring and Eaton in 1978, which shows the stages of developing a skill, and we will now look at that in more detail. When mastering new academic skills or strategies, the student learner typically progresses through a predictable series of learning stages. Here, as we look at this slide, we can see acquisition is followed by fluency, maintenance, generalization, and then finally adaptation. At the acquisition stage, the pupil performs the skill with accuracy. They then move on to fluency, where the pupil performs the skill with accuracy and fluency. They then move on to maintenance, and the proficiency level is reached, demonstrating maintenance in terms of accuracy and fluency. Generalization is when, with support and instruction, the pupil can apply skills in new and different contexts. And finally, adaptation exists without the specific instructions. Pupils apply skills in new and different contexts. When we look through this hierarchy of learning and we're focusing on the precision monitoring intervention, it is important to say that within this intervention, the expectation is that the child or young person will reach the maintenance stage. The generalization and adaptation will happen within the classroom and then potentially within real-world scenarios. To help us better understand this hierarchy of learning, let's look at it in a more legible and understandable way. So let's imagine when you first learnt to drive. So first you had acquisition. You are learning to drive and need to think carefully when changing gears, indicating, etc. Then you move to fluency. You can change the gears without thinking and can now focus on the road by performing regularly. You are able to do this. Maintenance occurs over time, so maybe 2 weeks or maybe longer after you have come back from a long holiday, you step into your car, you can still drive. So this is evidence of maintenance through periods of no practice or no teaching. And then generalization. Maybe your friend adds you to their insurance and asks you to drive their car, and you are more than able to do so. Maybe you travel to another country like the United States of America, and you are able to drive an American car, sitting on the opposite side of the car and driving on the opposite side of the road. You are adapting your skill into this new context. So hopefully, through using precision monitoring, you can keep a clear record of the child's acquisition of a new word or a new calculation, how fluent they are, and check the maintenance of that context as well. Another little bit of psychology here is Vygotsky. Vygotsky said that learning was a social process. He explained that there is a learning zone called the zone of proximal development, which are tasks which a child can do with support from a knowledgeable other. For example, a child can brush their teeth when you model how to do it in front of them, which is an example of scaffolding by modeling. We want to move your child or young person into the middle of the circle in the picture, and with your support, your child or young person can get there. Through collaborative exercise activities, which will build their confidence and be engaging, and so within precision monitoring, the aim is to move them toward that zone of proximal development, which are tasks that they can initially do with assistance and ultimately will hopefully be able to do without your assistance. So let's move on to the practical elements of this psychological intervention. On the screen are the steps of precision monitoring. We have really broken these down into little steps. Step 1, firstly, find a suitable student. Remember, precision monitoring is for basic skills and increasing confidence. Step 2, think about what they need to learn. Is it number bonds? Is it high frequency words that can't be decoded by phonics? Do they need to spell them, pronounce them, write them correctly? Step 3, find out what they can do already. It is essential that you are able to highlight to the child or young person that there are things that they are capable of doing and do very well. And this is an opportunity to really highlight that explicitly. For this step, you will need to find a baseline, and we will show you how to do that later. It's really important to say at this juncture that in this intervention, the child or young person are competing against themselves. They are working towards their own personal best, and by finding out what they can do already, we are able to measure what their personal best is. Step 4, we choose 3 things to teach them because this is achievable and increases self-esteem and motivation. Step 5, we make a target with the child or young person so they feel a part of their own learning. We teach them 3 things through fun and engaging activities in step 6. Step 7, we test them using a probe sheet, which we will look at soon. This has 5 items on it, which are 2 known words or items interleaved with 3 unknown words or items. Step 8. We record their results. We will show you how to do this. And then, step 9. We review it with them. So let's use a case study to help us understand the process better.
This is Mia. Mia is 7 and knows her phonics to an age-appropriate level. So she is in Year 2, Key Stage 1. Mia still hasn't picked up tricky words like one and is still trying to decode them using phonics. Mia has a short attention span and struggles to sit still for long periods of time. Mia is starting to say she is a rubbish reader, and her parents are finding it hard to get her to read at home. So based on this case study thus far, and the background information I've just shared, is Mia a suitable student for precision monitoring? If you're watching this recorded training in a group, you might want to pause at this juncture and have a short discussion with your colleagues about whether this is a suitable student for precision monitoring. If you are in fact not with your colleagues, you might still want to take a moment for general reflection, personally, to think about if she is suitable. Okay, well done. You've had an opportunity to discuss or to reflect, and the answer is yes. She is a suitable student for precision monitoring. So now we need to think about what they need to learn. To decide which key skill to choose, we must think about what they need to learn. Here are 4 key skill types that can be used, and we need to decide which skill would be best. Is it see to say? This is reading and saying aloud. Or is it hear to write, which is listening and writing? How about see to write, where they are reading and writing? Or hear to say, where they are listening and saying the words out loud? Or maybe the calculations, for example. If Mia needs to be able to read high frequency words which she cannot decode because the phonics rule does not apply, which skill do you believe would be best for her? Again, if you're in a group, you might want to pause and discuss. If not, you might want to still pause to reflect before you hear the response. That's right, C to say, as we want her to increase her reading confidence, reading high frequency common exception words in English. Okay, we now need to find out what they can do. So here are 2 ways in which you can find out what Mia can do already: the baseline and the aim rate. Let's take a look at these together. Firstly, the baseline. This is the current pre-intervention level of performance. With Mia as an example, how many words a child can read in 1 minute before new teaching strategies are applied. It is essential for measuring progress and measures the starting point. From the baseline, we can then set an aim rate for the target skill. In precision monitoring, you establish a baseline to measure the starting point and set an aim rate for the target skill. The aim rate is the goal rate of fluency that you want the student to achieve. Remember, pupils are competing with themselves over time rather than with peers, which is more motivating. Conducting a baseline assessment with a child to establish their current attainment is essential. To do this, you could use group word lists, high frequency words, or phonics words from the targeted phase, times tables, or number bond facts, depending on the skill you wish to target. So for Mia, we want to test her on words she can already read confidently. We found a list of 5 words which she can read confidently, which are placed randomly on a probe sheet. Mia is then asked to read all the words from left to right in 1 minute precisely. You must test the child or young person for 1 minute precisely. The number of words read out should be tallied and counted at the end. The exact timing is very important. It enables you to work out the child's fluency and find their baseline, which is their personal best. We would ask the child to read as quickly and as accurately as they can, going along the lines from left to right. If they reach the bottom of the prompt sheet before the minute is up, we'd ask them to start from the top again. It may be best to do this 3 times and take an average to ensure the results you get for the baseline is fair and increases the reliability of the test. Remember to prompt the child to read at a normal reading pace, as this is important. The size of your prompt sheet will vary depending on the child's age and ability, but we'd recommend around 24 squares for older children and 15 squares for younger. You can use your judgment to create a probe sheet that you believe to be manageable. Now let's look at the aim rate. The aim rate, which can also be known as the target rate, is the goal rate of fluency that you want the student to achieve, reflective of age-related expectations. Using the baseline, you can set an aim rate that you would like the student to achieve. However, it is important to note that we want children to ultimately reach their age-related expectations. Therefore, lowering the aim rate for success is not helpful. Precision monitoring teaching should aim to pull the child up and reduce the gaps between peers. So if we see here the example on the screen, Mia has been able to read 35 high-frequency words in 1 minute. So she has had 35 responses per minute, and for her key stage, the expectation for that skill is 40. So she is very close to the expectation for her key stage, and therefore we would want her to achieve the same for the new words that she will be learning in precision monitoring. So just to recap, precision monitoring sessions are short, sharp, and targeted sessions. We start with the teaching section. For new words, allow 8 minutes, and when the child or young person is familiar with the words, this can be a shorter refresher time. Then test for 1 minute. This is a strict time session so that we can accurately see any changes. We then record for 1 minute. Record this accurately and then feedback with the child to develop those self-reflection skills. And remember, they are competing with themselves, and congratulate them on the progress they are making. You only need 10 minutes a day. So we now move on to choose 3 things to teach. Mia needs to learn high frequency common exception words that cannot be decoded by phonics. We know she can read phonics words at an aim rate of 35 responses per minute. So we would like to get Mia to read the same number of words within a minute for the common exception words. But of course, we can't teach them all at once. And this is why we choose 3 high frequency common exception words and interleave them with 2 known words to start with. I have chosen these from the 100 most common high frequency exception words: once, was, and come. The child needs to learn until they're confident, as this helps to build motivation. So we would recommend that all adults delivering the intervention would interleave the content on the probe, also known as prompt sheet, so that the children have a higher chance of initial success, which can impact their motivation, helping them to remain motivated. The probes should interleave known context. For example, 2 words already mastered, with a new content being taught. For example, 3 new words. If a challenge of only using the new words on a probe is later agreed between the adult and child, then that is fine. We now move on to the next step, making a target. It is important that we make a target that is smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Can you think of a SMART target for Mia that covers the SMART acronym? Feel free to pause the recording to write down your target. We will share an example in just a moment. Okay, here's the example we created. Mia will read the three high frequency words once, was, and come at 35 responses per minute with two maximum errors by the end of the week. As you can see here, it is a SMART target: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Here are some questions to reflect on as we keep going forward with this intervention training. How do we know when a child has reached a level of accuracy and fluency? And how do we know when to move on to the next set of learning? Place these questions in your mind to the side, and we will come back to this in just a moment. It is important to say that the aim rate, sometimes known as the target rate, is different for each child to measure accuracy and fluency, and so we need to reflect on that when it comes to our teaching. Remember, Jonathan Solity observed. Oh, so, to recap, when we're thinking of teaching, we want to make sure that it is memorable, fun, motivating, with clear objectives, and individualized to the needs of the child or young person you are working with. Maybe taking them outdoors if they struggle to keep still indoors. Use and engage in activity they don't usually do in class. Consider their learning style and continue to think outside the box. Multisensory learning is essential, so sight, hearing, touch, and movement. How can you incorporate this into the learning process when you are teaching them? Emotions are connected sometimes, and colours and sounds as well to help us remember. When we think about special memories, we create links in our brains through sounds, feelings, and visuals, which make memorable links when recalling. So bear this in mind when you're creating your wonderful resources. Here are some other examples of learning through play. Playing Guess Who to describe features and developing questioning in the target language and learning through games. Other examples could be using lollipops to encourage that kinesthetic learning. Messy play with younger children to teach primary and secondary colours, for example, red hand, blue handprint, and rub together to make purple. Also, we have an example of using the periodic table to teach the elements, encouraging coding while learning and then testing them through a sing-along. Now, what equipment will I need? One thing which is important before we continue is to really think about the equipment. This is because it can get a little confusing, but it is actually very simple. You will need your engaging teaching ideas. You will need your prompt sheet, precision monitoring chart, colored pens, a timer, or a stop clock. A prompt sheet is called a test sheet or a probe sheet. It's a simple sheet with 5 words or 5 items you want to test them on, and it is randomly spread over a sheet. The precision monitoring chart is what is used to write down the results on and to mark their progress. Sometimes for primary school children, it may be called a celebration chart. The coloring pens are used for precision monitoring chart, and your timer on your stop clock is used to measure that precise minute when you are testing that child or young person. Because it is such a personalized intervention, you might want to consider how you measure the time. Bear in mind that there might be some children who, when it comes to using timers or stop clocks, they may be so distracted by that resource that they do not focus on the task itself. So you can decide whether or not it is helpful for the child to visually see the timer or whether it would be distracting or anxiety inducing. As long as you can keep track of the time in a controlled or non-visible way if needed and know when the minute is up, that is absolutely fine.
The following website on the slide can be used for probe sheets to be generated. You enter the items which you would like to test and it scatters the items into a random order for you. The probe sheets can then be printed quickly and easily for your sessions. It's really helpful to use this when you are still testing that child or young person because some are very bright and with the daily testing may memorize the probe sheet. So if you have a probe sheet with the same words or items scattered in a different order, it really enables you to visualize if the child or young person has actually mastered these key items 3 consecutive days in a row before you move on to the next set of items. The next step is test. For testing, we use a specifically designed prompt sheet and place the 5 words in a random order. You then test for 1 minute exactly using a stopwatch or timer. You keep a tally of correct and incorrect answers. So if they are saying the words and they make an error, if they're self-correct, you are going to mark it as right. If they don't self-correct, then it is indeed an error. If the child gets stuck, encourage them to move on to the next item. If the child finishes the prompt sheet before the time is up, ask them to repeat it from the first item again, from left to right. We encourage you to test the child or young person on a daily basis to ensure the words or the calculations are going into that maintenance zone. And of course, like we mentioned before, it can be used to measure different skill types such as hear to write, hear to say, and see to write, depending on the skill that you need to develop. So Mia in this context was given a sheet with the 3 words that we have just taught her, interleaved with 2 known words. She had 1 minute to read as many words as she could. Both the correct and incorrect responses and the number of words read were noted down, and that is how we tested Mia. The next step is record. So we have tested Mia. We are now recording the information. The baseline is marked horizontally on the chart in red. So you can see with a red pen or felt tip that you would make that horizontal line on the chart to indicate what their personal best is, which will form their aim rate. This is what they are aiming for. This is their target. On the same precision monitoring chart, we then chart the scores, which are written as circles for the amounts correct and crosses or X's for the amounts that are wrong. At the top, you can see that you have the days of the week, Monday to Friday, and at the bottom of the chart, you can see that you can log the number of correct and incorrect answers that are given on a daily basis. It is important that you use this chart throughout the week. If your child or young person are absent on a day, you leave the absent days blank. So remember we had those 2 reflection questions that were mentioned before about the target rate. How do we know when a child has reached a level of accuracy and fluency? And how do we know when to move on to the next set of learning? This is how we know. We want Mia to be fluent in her reading of the words, and to measure this, we want her to make sure that she can reach her baseline, her personal best, for 3 days in a row. Once a pupil has reached that fluency, they have hit their personal best 3 days in a row, we can move on to a new set of words. It's important to check for maintenance at regular intervals, so we can use an old probe to check that they are still fluent with these words, and we can continue to interleave previously learnt words with new words, keeping the ratio 2 known words interleaved with 3 new words. 2 handy ways to help review progress. If your pupil or young person doesn't show progress in the first 3 days, an alteration needs to be made. This is known as a 3-day rule. So either the task can appear too hard or too easy, and you should consider reducing the demands of the task. It could be to make them more engaging and highly focused on the target skill. It could be a change of the environment or time of day in which the intervention takes place. Consider and think about when your child works at their best, and make sure that you create an intervention at a timing which works best for them, which ideally is consistent daily. There's also the 8-day rule. If after 8 days, which is around nearly 2 weeks because we have a 5-day week for school, if after 8 days the student is not close to their aim rate, again, alterations should be made. This is known as the 8-day rule. So again, consider the teaching methods and activities, the timing and the location of the sessions, and if needed, alter your probe sheet. A new target may be needed. Don't be tempted to reduce the aim rate because the child is not hitting the target. Rather than reducing the aim rate, you need to tweak the teaching or reduce the amount you are teaching them. And that goes back to the example of interleaving. So teaching them 3 new words and incorporating it with 2 known words they are already confident in. That way you can measure progress in a more gradual and achievable way. Here is another example of how to review your precision monitoring chart. So you have the chart description, what it looks like as a picture, the interpretation and intervention. And so, for example, with our precision monitoring chart, you can see there that it helps you to understand what's been happening. So if there are more errors than correct and no sign of a switch, it might be that the task is inappropriate and you consider new words or a new target. Or if within the first 3 days the correct words start going down and the incorrect words start going up, again, the task would probably be inappropriate and you might want to monitor the progress. Is it a blip? Have they been off for the last 3 days? Have they been sick? Is it the time of day? Consider new words or teaching methods if needed. If both the correct and incorrect rates are increasing, the person could be merely going faster and attempting more on the probe sheet. So encourage the child to slow down, focusing on their accuracy and not just speed, and that will hopefully adjust your results. If some progress is accurate but shallow correct rate slope, then the task is likely to be appropriate, but maybe the progress is not fast enough. So you may need to consider increasing motivation through rewards, or you may need to alter your teaching methods. Your rewards must be in line with the behaviour policy of your setting, and it also has to be sustainable for you to reward them in this way. And of course, if you have that discussion with the child to see if the reward or the feedback that they would get would be beneficial and motivating, then this will make sure that you match what the child really needs with the rewards that you are considering. So when you're reviewing the precision monitoring chart, which can also be called a celebration chart, you can see when the information was collected, the effect of weekends absences and when no assessment was made. You can see the rate of learning and how many days are needed to acquire a skill. You can discern any patterns in learning and you can involve the pupil in self-monitoring. So this is a really active document that's beneficial for the child or young person, for the staff member doing the intervention, and of course fantastic evidence when Ofsted come. Some things to remember about Mia. Mia was feeling self-conscious about her reading skills, so we need to remember to celebrate her progress. Think about what motivates her and generates positive self-esteem. There is evidence-based research that has shown, especially for boys, it's important to have that immediate feedback and emphasize those positives as it promotes self-management for learning, and even more importantly, it promotes self-esteem. Remind your child or young person that they are competing with themselves over time rather than their peers. Correct errors and help them to recognize that they will be worked on. Emphasize that it is important and normal to make mistakes, and the focus is progress and not perfection. Praise the small steps as you go along. And as you can see, Mia was awarded a rosette to celebrate the progress and the small steps that she is making in the right direction. There is quite a lot of information in this training, so you may want to pause here and take a break or time to reflect for a minute, just to process what you have understood and learnt so far before we move on to the third objective, putting precision monitoring into practice. Welcome back. Now it's your turn. It's time to practice precision monitoring. You'll be learning numbers 1, 2, and 3, and we will be using the skill type C to say, just like Nia did. Easy, you might think, but you'll be learning them in an alien language. Now, as you're learning an alien language, if we were in an in-person training, we would ask you to split into pairs, with one of you being the adult and the other the student. The next step would be to find the student's baseline by reading known words for 1 minute. We would then mark the baseline on the precision monitoring chart. After that, we would teach the alien words and then test on those words, marking the correct and incorrect answers on the chart so that you had a full experience of what it would be like to be the facilitating adult and, of course, the student, as you would have the opportunity to swap roles. Here's your probe sheet. These are the words that we're going to be using to find out the baseline. To find out the baseline, we would need to find out what the pupil knows. For example, reads 20 out of 50 high-frequency words correctly. The baseline is found by timing how many known words they can read from a probe sheet for 1 minute. You will notice that this probe sheet is 5 by 8, so it has 40 words on there. One of the ways that we mentioned that the adult delivering this intervention within this role could do, or we would encourage you to do to keep track of the incorrect errors and how many words have been said, is that you identify how many words are on the probe sheet. So if the child or young person has read the probe sheet through 3 times in that 1 minute, for example, we know that they've read 120 words and they might have made maybe 2 errors whilst reading. Now, what you would normally have is a timer for 1 minute for you to read through these words and see how much you are able to achieve. So if you would like to, you can pause this slide now and read out these words left to right for a minute, and then jot down how many words you have said correctly. If you are watching this training recording with a colleague or as a team, you might want to pause here, break out into pairs, and take an opportunity to do this element of testing now. Okay, now it's time to teach. We will be learning these alien words using call and response teaching to focus on our see to say skill, which means that I will call out the words and you will repeat them. You will notice on the upcoming probe sheet that you are not having to match the number with the word. You will just have to read out loud the words on the probe sheet. Let's practice. Repeat after me. Zimzam, chock-a-walk, grap jam. Again, zimzam, chock-a-walk, grap jam. One more time. Zimzam, chock-a-walk, grap jam. Fantastic. Right. This is your testing probe sheet. You will notice this probe interleaves two items of known content. In this example, 2 words already mastered with the 3 new alien words taught. Please remember when testing to ensure your student reads from left to right, reading the content over and over again until the 1 minute is completed. You will notice that the probe sheet is 5 by 5 in size and contains 25 words. So if your student reads through this sheet within 1 minute, for example 3 times, they have read the words 75 times. You may now want to pause, take out your timers to test yourself for 1 minute using this probe sheet. If you are in pairs, you may want to pause for longer to swap with your colleague so that they can have a chance to be tested as the student whilst you become the facilitating adult. Well done. So let's do some reflection on the task that you have just done. What was easy or hard about the task? What did it make you consider? Did you manage to get your aim rate? You'll probably notice that you didn't achieve your aim rate the first time you read the alien words, and it's important to emphasize and remind your child or young person that the expectation is not that they are going to match their personal best in their first practice, but over a period of regular testing, they will get there. How do you think your student might feel about the process now that you've had a chance to experience being a student? How did you feel going through that process? What things would you consider now that you've experienced it that maybe you would not have considered before? Did you get any praise at the end of doing it? If you were doing it in pairs with a colleague? We would recommend not praising the student throughout the test, but leaving that till the end. Also, bear in mind that some children and young people do not like too much praise, or they may respond to praise in a negative way, which might be detrimental to their progress. But you will know your child or young person well in your setting, so bear in mind what kind of praise benefits them, and if you are playing the role of the student, hopefully you had a chance to get and receive some encouragement. Lastly, did you feel motivated as a student to have another go? Because what we want to do is create a space in precision monitoring where the opportunity for the child or young person to feel motivated enough to have another go is present. We are mindful that within an in-person training, you would have had an opportunity to plot your scores on the precision monitoring chart. But we hope that the visuals on previous slides within this training has clearly illustrated how to fill in the chart when the time comes. So what's next? Maintaining, generalizing, and then adapting. A great way of measuring maintenance is by repeating probes. After a student has achieved their target, we don't throw the probe sheets away. We keep them over a period of time and bring them out on regular intervals to retest them. By repeating earlier probes or doing mixed probes of already learnt content, this allows you to see how well the student has been able to retain or recall previously learnt content. Generalization is also a key part of learning, but it normally takes place outside of the precision monitoring intervention. Generalization is normally seen in the classroom and other environments which provide opportunities for generalization of learnt content. For generalizing to occur, we ask, can the learner transfer what you taught them beyond the precision monitoring sessions? Are there planned learning opportunities within class to embed these skills? Are there displays in the classroom, activities that the student can engage in, or games that they can play to generalize what they learnt in precision monitoring. Adaptation, again, similar to generalizing, will not be measurable within your precision monitoring intervention. But through good communication with parents, carers, teachers, and other educational professionals that are supporting the child or young person within their setting, might enable you to identify if they are able to transfer those skills into real world scenarios or other classroom subjects. So here are some things to consider for long-term use. Don't stop in the middle of a target. Try and see it through to a review point. Look at the image here. The importance is the small steps in making big progress. Try to plan precision monitoring in half-termly chunks, so approximately 6 weeks is ideal. Some pupils may be able to continue with precision monitoring interventions all year round if you have the staffing and sustainability for that, while others may just need a one-off intervention. Precision monitoring interventions should be used ideally for as long as a student benefits from it. And for those of you who are watching this training with your colleague or colleagues, you can use each other as a useful resource by observing each other whilst doing the precision monitoring and also giving each other constructive feedback. So in summary, precision monitoring should be frequent, ideally daily, delivered within short and restricted time periods. Through precision monitoring, extremely small changes in performance can be observed, progress is always made, and it should be motivational. One advantage of precision monitoring, also known as precision teaching, is that it is a flexible and effective evidence-based intervention if carried out correctly. It allows the adult facilitating the intervention to easily adjust and tailor their approach to target specific areas that the student needs the most support in, and because of the flexibility of precision monitoring, it can successfully help to build the confidence of students easily. Here is the link to the current working probe generator website, which creates your prompt or probe sheets for you and scatters the words or the items for you in a randomized order. Thank you so much. We have now come to the end of our precision monitoring training. If you would like to arrange a follow-up visit after this training to monitor the fidelity of this intervention and ensure it is being implemented correctly, we advise that you contact your Link EP in the first instance. If you are unsure of who your setting's Link EP is, your SENCo should be able to help with this.